In this video, I'm going to restore, or at least thoroughly clean, a 70-year-old electric paper drill. I'm working on two projects at present that this machine would be handy for. I'm doing another post-bound album, and the paper drill could save me 5 minutes of work using a Japanese screw punch to make all the holes. And I'm working on a children's book that I want to have rounded corners on, and this paper drill has a nifty feature in that you can remove the drill bit and install a corner rounding knife. I've never used the corner rounding feature on this machine. We'll see how well it works. The nameplate says the drill was made by the Custom Machinery Company of Rosebery, New South Wales. In Australia, we have this wonderful resource called Trove, which ties libraries all over the country together and incorporates the newspaper digitisation project at the National Library. This is the place to find information about this machine and the Custom Machinery Company. My first search gave way too many results. Maybe if I narrow it down a bit, I can reduce the number to manageable. Okay, from 13,000 to 1. I guess 1 is manageable. And it looks like I'm lucky and the matched item has been digitised. Custom Machinery Company registered in August 1954 with a capitalisation of £15,000 to carry on the business of manufacturing and distributing machinery and tools used in the printing trade, etc. I guess bookbinding is etc. If you too want to own one of these fine machines, there's one for sale in Sydney right now for the ridiculously cheap price of $90. It doesn't have a corner rounding cutter, but I'm sure replacements can be found or made. If it wasn't so far away, I'd buy it to have a matching pair. My original plan was to break the machine into two parts, the top and the bottom, and to just wipe it down with soapy shop rags. It's small but heavy, not to mention awkwardly shaped. My guess is that it's over 50 kilograms. I got this machine almost a year ago from a bloke by the name of Doug Keats, after he retired from being a bookbinder for the second time. It functions as a paper drill just fine as it is, but it's so dirty that any paper you bring near it ends up soiled, and it squeaks. I believe it was made in the late 50s or early 60s, and Doug bought it used from a company that used to resell printing industry equipment. It has the telltale signs of sticky rubber-based ink all over it. As well as the sticky rubber-based ink and actual grease and decades of dust accumulation, there is also some surface rust and bird poop. I think Doug must have had sparrows in his bindery at some point. A soapy rag isn't going to do it. I decided to break it down into smaller parts, but keeping the motor together. The motor spins easily and very smoothly. The table seems the easy place to start. It might look like painted wood, but it's actually some sort of synthetic material, one of those resin-filled laminated cloth things. This makes it easy to clean as it's completely water resistant and as tough as nails. If you clean old equipment, you develop a list of favourite solvents and general muck and grease removers. In the general muck and grease category, my current favourite is Crud Cutter, regular and extra strength. I normally use the regular and only break out the strong stuff for stubborn muck. I always do a little test in an out-of-the-way spot before going whole hog. Getting Crud Cutter in Australia can be a bit of a challenge. My local home centre sometimes has stock. In this project, I quickly run out of the regular and changed to the strong. Luckily, the gold paint on the metal parts is robust and showed no signs of caring about the stronger stuff. I wear nitrile gloves when using the strong stuff. It's just a matter of spraying it on and then scrubbing with the stiff bristle brush and then rinsing it off. If it's still dirty, repeat, maybe letting it soak for 10 minutes. Once you've got as much muck off as you can, which will include any grease and oil that was inhibiting rust, any bare metal that's now in contact with air and water is likely to flash rust. Flash rusting is when a thin coat of red rust forms in minutes, while you're watching. The trick is to get the water off of it and a protective coating on as fast as possible. That might mean drying with rags, then compressed air, quickly wiping with a hydrocarbon solvent to get rid of any remaining oils and to displace any water, and then quickly giving a coat of primer. I didn't have an exact plan, and I wasn't painting anything. It's in these moments of indecision that I roll out the stopgap solution. I find that our garbage bins make excellent work surfaces for cleaning stuff. One of the great features is that the water wipes off easily from the plastic tops. Once the crud cutter is washed off, I get rid of as much water as possible by wiping it, and then I blast it with compressed air. Air is especially good for getting water out of the holes. Putting an air outlet outside was one of the smartest things I've ever done. I'm not trying to get the thing completely dry outside, just dry enough that I can take it into the garage and blow it more and not fill the garage with water mist. Once it looks dry, assuming it's a metal object and I'm not painting it, I spray it with WD-40. This provides a temporary rust inhibitor layer and displaces any remaining moisture. The magic of WD-40. The black table I just dried and nothing else. I kept that far away from the garage and WD-40. I didn't want any oils or greases getting onto it that might transfer to paper later. The parts with some rust I dropped into a tub of my homebrew chemical rust remover for a short time. This is a great way to clean up springs, and it worked a treat on the 2 springs from this machine. The big spring might have a zinc coating, so I only put it into the chemical bath for 10 minutes. I wouldn't want to remove a protective zinc coating. I'll describe my chemical rust removal process in a different video. Between the base, table, fence, support rod and lever assembly there were a lot of things to clean, and it took me 3 days. Many of the bolts and nuts needed extra cleaning with a wire wheel or brush. Once everything was clean, I wiped everything down to remove most of the WD-40 and then gave everything a coating of my current favourite polishing wax. You rub everything over with this wax and then wipe most of it off with a clean shop rag. This is a popular way of protecting metal machinery, especially in wood shops. My favourite wax rust inhibitor is Minwax paste wax, but this is impossible to get in Australia. When we moved back here, I used numerous wax products but found they were too soft and didn't last long on the surface. I've settled on Turtle car wax polish, the expensive one with added graphene. Why the expensive one? I'd really like to try the magic carbon method rust inhibitor, but it's more expensive by volume than printer ink. And well, carbon, graphene, practically the same thing, right? The cheaper turtle wax would probably work just as well, though I'm now addicted to the smell of graphene. I almost forgot to mention, the rubber feet on the base were completely cactus. I ordered in some replacements, which were a very good match for size and design, but black instead of red. They were designed to go onto speaker boxes, 5.1 channel I guess, as there were a heap left over. Like all great reassembly jobs, I go about it in a completely different order than I pulled it apart. The first thing I took off was the table, and that's the first thing I put back. The advantage of this is that it gives me a large flat surface to place things. Clean, flat surfaces are always in short supply here. I just work my way from bottom to top. Even if you're not making YouTube videos, it's not a bad idea to take video of things as you're taking them apart, or at least photos and notes to help when you're putting things back together. I had to go back to the video a few times. The green bench I'm working on is actually a new external door on some trestles. It's a replacement for my parents' laundry door that I haven't got around to installing. It needs cutting to size and painting. While I procrastinate about doing this job, it does make a good bench, but I did realise I needed to protect it a bit so I didn't make any dents or scratches in it. To clean the motor, I use low odour kerosene. I use this for cleanup when printing. It seems the best option for what I think is old ink residue. You're probably thinking you'd never buy a machine like this. Maybe you'd rather just buy a modern paper drill. I think there's a lot of reasons for a hobby binder to buy older commercial equipment. Number one is that the older equipment is really cheap. Yes, you may have to spend a few days doing restoration, but this process can be fun and rewarding and will save a lot of money, even if you include your time. Older equipment is often really well made. Older equipment is often smaller and will fit in a larger home bindery. A lot of modern machines are huge. Unfortunately, a lot of this old equipment goes to the scrap. Using old equipment is saving history. The main downside is safety. Old paper guillotines don't have the safety features such as guards, blade lockup or two-hand operation, which I think makes them unsafe for most modern uses, such as a home bindery. But I think this paper drill, while it won't win any modern safety awards, is safe. Over the years, this machine has lost some bolts and thumb screws which have been replaced with similar ones. Australia went metric just before I was born, and this machine is older than me. British standard threads were common pre-metric, but surprisingly this machine uses the American Unified Thread Standard. This machine has a lot of square head set screws. Historically, these were used to lock wheels and pulleys on shafts. They're very difficult to find now, especially in UTS or British Standard threads. I mostly replace them with modern hex cup heads, which look terrible on old machines. So I practiced some procrastination this week by looking for replacements, and none of the usual suppliers here had them. I found a bloke selling old stock on eBay for about 100 times what they cost originally. It was frustrating to see McMastercar had a range of UNC threads and lengths. Buy up while you can. The other thing that's now hard to find, and was common, is thumb screws. I always thought of them as a bit cheap, a bit of threaded rod squished to a disc at the end. But now I'm sort of nostalgic for them, and when restoring old equipment it would be nice to use them where they would have been original. I think the stop collars on the guide bars at the back of the fence would have originally had thumb screws instead of the set screws that are there now. Doug lives a short walk from a well-known engineering firm called Hahn's Welding Works. I suspect he got a lot of stuff from there rather than the hardware store. I know this is getting away from bookbinding, but if you ever do want to restore bookbinding machines or printing presses, you will need to know a bit about bolt threads and the different standards from around the world. It was common for this type of equipment to travel all over the globe. If I find some time, I might do a video, Threads I've Known and How to Identify Them. The fence has two guide bars, with one having a bracket to position the material being drilled and the other having stop collars which position the bracket. It'll be easier to understand how it works when I drill some holes. I did have to go back to the video to work out how it went back together, and even then I had to pull it apart a couple of times to make some changes. There's some elaborate side-to-side adjustment screws on the support column. I figured this meant the drill needed some precise adjustments so the motor arm was perpendicular to the table. But there's no easy way to make this adjustment. I used a pair of calipers to find and mark the center of the support column on the bracket casting, and after confirming the front and back edges of the table are parallel, I marked a line extending out from the column on a piece of paper I'd taped to the table. I then used the adjustment screws to get the drill centered on this line. I later decided this was a waste of time. There's so many ways to adjust this machine. This particular adjustment doesn't seem to add any value. After reinstalling the aftermarket drink bottle waste paper catcher, it was time to drill some holes. The first adjustment is to move the fence front and back to get the distance from the edge the desired amount. Then the stop collars on the guide bar can be positioned to place the holes the desired distance from the top and bottom edges. The spring on the top guide bar pushes the positioning bracket up against the stop collars. Moment of truth. A paper drill is not like a wood or a metal drill. A paper drill is hollow, and the waste paper is pushed up the inside of the drill and ejected, in this case, into a drink bottle. For a first try, this drill worked extremely well. I think the replaceable insert in the table below the drill is a bit soft, and this resulted in the exit hole tearing out a bit. I'm sure replacing the insert will fix this problem. Time to try the corner rounding chisel. The chisels that came with the machine were extremely rusty. I've given them a good clean, but I didn't sharpen them. For this reason alone, I knew this wouldn't be perfect. I'd also forgotten how finicky it is to set up corner rounding. If you want to take a deeper cut, you have to adjust the stop on both sides. It's the sort of adjustment you wouldn't want to do too often, and now I remember why it's common to have a dedicated corner rounder to avoid making this adjustment too often. My dedicated corner rounder, which came to me from the births, deaths and marriages bindery via Cole and Jason, thanks Jason if you're watching, is still in storage after the flood 3 years ago. Maybe it's time for it to come home. I really need to sharpen the chisel to make this work properly, and that's for another day. I'm sure it'll work great with a bit more effort. Having this ability to round corners on a paper drill is a great little feature. That is the machine back in operation, just a little bit late for the album video. Thanks for your patience as I get things sorted out after the flood in March and while I focus on adding some extra material on Patreon. I promise I'll be back to regular bookbinding videos soon. Until next time, cheerio.